In this Photoshop lesson, we are going to use the history brush and a technique frequently called color emphasis to paint back color into an image that has been desaturated or has been converted to a grayscale or black and white image. I'll go ahead and put the instructions set up here so that you'll have that. In the future, you may need to reference this. Just kind of a quick recipe. Just to refresh your memory as you go through and do this. Sometimes months go by. In fact, those of you that are watching this as of today's date, we're getting ready for our end of the year movie, and so this is a technique that we used way back in the early part of September, and so it might be a good chance for you to review that and just some of the basics of it, because we're trying to create a lot of images that are interesting visually, interesting to look at as we make it part of our end of the year video. And we also want to be able to demonstrate to the parents and visitors who come to our Spring Fling event some of the skills that you're learning in Photoshop. So there they are, and so we can leave those up there for a few seconds, or you can just pause the video if you need to review those at some point. We'll go ahead and get started. First, I think we'll take a look at a couple of images. Let's start off with, let's see what we've got here. Yeah, here we go. Here's an original picture that was taken on our blue screen with Clayton with the guitar. And here we go where we've added a little bit of color back in. Just a little bit. And for my eyes, that is a little more interesting. And there's another version of it with even less, just a little bit of color. We can see the red in his shirt, and we just put back a little bit of color just so it's not so overly saturated like that original right there. So there you go. Let's look at some other ones here from the past. Well, there's the original. Andrew, football, and then one of the students just emphasizing Andrew as the honker in blue, and so it really draws attention to the subject of the image. Here's one that somebody did from the fair. Got a nice blending of here's where we have completely desaturated, and then the color fades back into these colorful guitars that were on sale over at the Tule Lake Fair, and so that's fun to look at. Here's one where the student took the FFA jacket and simply put back color into the blue and gold of the FFA. So that puts a real emphasis on the FFA logo, Tule Lake, and of course California. Here is soccer players really emphasizing, and I mean some of these are really saturated here, but it does really emphasize the two teams. There's no doubt about who is who. Oh, this was fun. So they colored the lemon here. This is another one from the fair. And then, so just the lemon stand. And then, of course, the inside still at a grayscale or black and white. So that's fun. So anyway, you get the idea. There's some food that's been, color's been added back into it. And again, Deanna with a plate of some type of dessert from the fair. So let's go ahead and see what we need to do to make that happen. It's one of my favorite techniques. So we've got Photoshop opened up. And we'll go ahead and open a picture. So here's a picture that we put together of Caitlin on a recent trip to Cal Poly. And so we'll go see if we can't have some fun with this, convert it to a grayscale or desaturate, and then add some color back in. So the first step is to duplicate your image. Make sure we don't want to do something to the original, not be able to get back to it. So I'm going to go ahead and make a copy, and then I'm going to put the original, I'll just minimize that, move it out of the way. And the next step is to select Image on the main menu, Adjustments, and then scroll down to desaturate. And so all of the color has been removed from that image now. Next step, navigate over to the history window, the history button, and click that. And then you'll see the different states of activity that we have initiated. So we opened the image, duplicated the image, and then we desaturated the image. What we want to pay attention to here are what we call the source for the history brush, or the history states. And those are clicked right over here. And you'll see that it's already selected at this location here. And so what the history brush will do, and you notice it's a brush with an arrow going counterclockwise to indicate that we can go back in time. And so when we click here at this location, it means that when we use the brush, we want to paint back in whatever was occurring at that particular state when we opened the image in this case. So when we use the history brush, it's going to put back in selected areas the color that was in the original image. So with that selected just like that, then we come over and look for the history brush over here on our tool palette. And our history brush for now seems to be, oh, there it is right there. I thought might be hiding, but there it is. History brush, once again, is the paintbrush with the arrow going to the left. Click that, and like all other brushes, we have the controls of size, brush hardness, and then the other control that we want to use is the opacity, and that will control how much of the original color we actually paint back in to our new desaturated image. So I'm going to set this at a really soft brush. And then once again, we can use our brackets to adjust the size on our picture. Shortcuts, right bracket and left bracket. I always like to start with about 25%. If you start at 100%, you're going to end up with something that looks like that. It's just a little bit too much. So I'm going to start in the 20s and go back and get rid of that history brush use there. And so I'm going to start with something just a little more subtle than 100% and do a little experimentation, see how that looks. Now every time I click this, it's essentially going to remove, in this case, 26%. I'm going to lower that even a little bit more. So with multiple clicks, you can paint back more color. So the things that I'm going to want to emphasize here are our subject, Caitlin, and then probably this little Cal Poly image that we had placed into this Photoshop image during a previous project. So you can see a little bit of color starting to come back in there. And I'm going to also throw some color on the Cal Poly sign. And maybe a little on this building right through here like that. Probably going to ignore most of this down here. The grass is not in great shape. And some of the sky is a little bit blue, so I might want to throw some of that in there too. So I might do a little sweep across here. Like that. And maybe a little bit more in this section and here, and then might highlight a little bit more of the hair through here and let that fade into black. And so there you go. The frame itself, maybe I'll put a little bit around that to kind of match my building. Put a little of that back in. Might be a little bit heavy, but and then maybe a little bit right through there. Cal Poly, bring that out a little bit more. Show that Mustang. And there you go. And so that might be something you might want to try. You might want to come in, maybe I really want to emphasize the eyes. Brighten those up a little bit compared to the rest of the image. There's 2 clicks. 2 clicks. So there you go. So do a lot of those. Practice a bunch. A lot of fun. Those of you who are seniors, you might want to work on your senior pictures. And those of you who will be seniors, Photoshop can be just a lot of fun. Practice different skills and create some real interesting images.